my name's Laura Young. I am an artist based in Corvallis, Oregon, and I am so excited to be here to share with you Arts Alive 2021. We get to create with clay together, which is one of my most favorite things to do. And if you don't already love clay, I hope after this you will fall in love with it. So first things first, what are we making? So you have a kit for a wall pocket. What is a clay wall pocket? Well, it's a design that I came up with that looks like this. And it's something that you can hang on the wall. Some people like to put air plants inside or fresh flowers. You could also use it for treasures. It could be a holder. It could be anything that you want it to be. You'll be able to pick a color and I will glaze your project after you make it. It's gonna go into the kiln and it's gonna get heated up to 2,000 degrees so it becomes rock hard. So I'm gonna show you the basic instructions to make a wall pocket, and then you can put your own designs on top of it and you can modify the design as you wish. So I wanna take just a moment to thank the Art Center for this wonderful Arts Alive program and for the opportunity to connect and share art with you. And I want to thank all the supporters of Arts Alive. There's some wonderful creators in the community, in the region, and I just want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing because the arts are such a good thing for us. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our clay kit out and we'll look inside there and get our work area set up. How to make a wall pocket is kind of like making origami with clay. So we need to gather our materials, we need to have a look at what's in our bag and make a couple tools. So let's be sure our workstation is set up. It's nice to work on a piece of canvas if you have it, or a old cotton shirt is fine too. You'll want to also have some water in a small bowl. This is a pot that was thrown on the pottery wheel. You'll need to make a cutting tool. And we'll need to make some slip. And all slip is watered down clay. And so you take some of your clay, you put it in a bowl or a plastic container with a lid is good. We'll take some clay to make some slip. This is going to be like your glue. And then you get a little bit of your water. I'm going to use a sponge to get a little bit of my water from there, and I'm just going to drizzle it on top. And I use my finger to stir, which is fine. You can just kind of mash it together. You can also use a wooden tool if you want. You could use your popsicles too, but the idea is just mixing together some clay, enough so that it becomes a little bit of a slurry. And this is the secret ingredient that keeps clay attached together. All right, so we have our slip, we have our cutting tool, you also have a toothpick, and you got your instructions, and we have cut out our template. So what we're going to do is put our clay directly on top of our canvas or linen, and we need to roll this out to about 1/4 inch. And if you have a couple rulers, you might want to grab those because there's a little trick that I want to share with you to try to get the clay to the right thickness. You can use the thickness of the ruler. So we're going to set the rulers on either side, and if you don't have rulers, don't worry about it. Just roll out your clay. We just don't want to roll it out too thin. And if your clay is a little hard because it's been so hot lately here in Oregon, you can wrap it for a couple hours in a damp cloth, and that will help soften it. And I'm just rolling out, and once it gets a little thinner, then it'll touch the rulers. And so as long as I keep the rulers inside of the width of the rolling pin, I'll know when I get to the right thickness I want. And so I'm rolling out till I have a shape, the clay big enough so that I can cut out this shape of the template. So I'm going to keep rolling because it's still a little thick. So now I'm starting to roll on top of the ruler, so I know I'm getting it to the thickness I want. So I'm going to work with this section right here in the middle, and I'll just pull the scraps aside after I cut out my shape, and I'll use them for something else later. So I put my stencil on top of the clay, and I'm just going to move it down just a little bit there. And what I'm going to do now is trace this. And I'm going to use my cutting tool to do so. So you've got your popsicle stick. Some people also like to use a pin tool. If you have a pin tool, it's like a needle on the end, kind of like this right here. This is a pin tool, that works too, and you just go right around. But we're gonna try it with the popsicle stick. And just trace the edges, doesn't have to be perfect. It's one of the things that I love about clay. And then I'll pull the extra away. All right, so now I have my clay in the shape of the template. And what we're going to do is fold. So we're folding A down here up to B. And then we're going to fold C to the middle to make a cone shape. And if your edges start to crack, you can go ahead and dip your finger in a little bit of water. And smooth out the edges. And you can see we already have a pretty cool shape. We do need to clean up the edges all the way around, and we're going to have to seal it, but you can kind of get the idea. So now we're going to have to score and slip it so it stays, because that's not good enough. I can see a little bit where my seams were, and I can see where it's going to attach together. So right here, we're going to have to attach using our slip that we made up. So to score and slip, all it means is making lines. Those are called score lines. So we're going to score wherever the two pieces of clay attach together. You can use a toothpick then you're just putting lines, kind of like making a grid. You're not going all the way through, just enough to rough up the surface, and then I'm going to go across, kind of like making a checkerboard. And I'm also going to go in the inside space here where this overlaps. So I'm kind of eyeing this area right in here. I just put my finger in water so I could just kind of see where it's at. So I'm going to need to do my score lines there too. And then I'll put some of my slip on here. And then I can fold it together. So you don't need to use too much slip, and you see that it kind of drips down into the lines, and that's the idea. This will give it some strength. So you can just put slip on one side, and now we can fold the cone shape together. And I'm pressing, I have my hand here on the inside. Since I'm pushing down on the top, I'm providing some support so that the seal is strong. And you can go ahead and pinch the very bottom here. I like to have it totally closed in case I do have some flowers in there, and maybe there's a little water. If I don't want it to leak, I want it to be totally sealed there with no hole. And I'm going to flip it over to see the front side, and I want to do a little work on it. I'm going to keep my hands on the inside just for support. If you find that it's kind of caving in a little bit and your pocket on the inside is closing up, you can fold up some paper and stick it inside for support. So the clay will lighten in color as it dries out, your project, and then it'll lighten even more once it goes into the kiln and gets fired. All the water will get burnt out. So I'm just going around the edge, as you can see, with my finger dipped in water. I'm just trying to make it look a little nicer on the edges. I don't want any cracks. I want it to be strong. I like some of the texture. If you could see, there's a little bit of texture from the canvas on there that I kind of like, but I will want to add some more texture. And what I'm going to do on this one is I think I'll draw a sand dollar on the front. And I'll show you how I do that. If you want to draw one too, you can design it differently. You could put a Pokemon on there if you want to put Pikachu. You could press lace onto it. That makes a pretty design. You could leave it smooth. So right here is where I'm thinking I want to add a design once I have the shape in place. And if you want it to hang on the wall, we're going to do our holes here in a few minutes while the clay is wet and damp. If you don't want it to hang on the wall, if you'd rather it be used to hold a slice of pizza or a taco, then you can skip doing the holes, and you might even want to make this, you could push out a little bit from the inside out and make it a little bit bigger on the inside, a little thicker, kind of like what I did with this one. I made it so I changed the design a little bit so that it could hold a container. Now this isn't finished with glaze, so it'll need glaze before I use it for food. But I widened out here at this part, and I made it so it could stand up too by having that flat side there. And so you could do that with yours too. And I also cut off the back part. You could use your cutting tool if you don't want that rounded edge, if you'd rather it just have a straighter line. So you can adjust the shape if you want a little bit. I like to leave this on the back. I like this design for my wall pocket. I think this one I am going to put flowers in, or an air plant to hang on the wall. So I'll need to make my holes. So if you go to your instructions, you can use a nail. You could use a pencil. You could even use your toothpick, but you want to be sure the holes are big enough. So I'm going to put 2 holes in, like this one, so it can hang. And so instead of 1 hole in the middle, which you can do, you could do 2 holes which are a little bit off from the middle, on either side of the middle. And then you could use a pin tool if you have one, a nail, or even a pencil. I use a pencil a lot when I'm working with clay. So I'm just going to use a pencil, and I'm going to see where I want my holes. I don't want them too close to the edge. So I'm going down a little ways, and I'm just going to poke it through. And I'll smooth out the back when I'm done. And I'm going to come through the back side as well. Make sure those holes are all the way clear, all the way open and big enough, because the clay is going to shrink just a little bit. It's going to be about 10% smaller after it goes in the hot kiln and all the water evaporates out. It's going to be a little smaller of your project. So you want to be sure when you do holes in clay that you make sure they're just a little bigger than what you would usually do to account for shrinkage. Yeah, I'm liking this. I hope you're liking yours. So when you are ready to do some designs, you might decide that you want to wait a couple hours and let the clay harden a little bit, and then you can come in for more details. What I'm thinking about is making a sand dollar like I did on this one, if you can see up there. I just did the 1 hole, and I did a sand dollar shape. Sand dollars are pretty fun to make out of clay. All you need is a golf ball amount of clay, and then you flatten it down, and then you do a 5-leaf flower shape, and then you add these little lines and dots around, and I did all this with a pencil and a toothpick. And then the back side kind of reminds me of like tree branches or veins. The Western sand dollar might be purple or pink or a greenish color. So I want to draw my design on the front. So I'm using a sand dollar for inspiration. And you can do whatever you want. I am going to put my fingers on the inside since my clay is still kind of wet for now, so I'm going to do that for support. So for my sand dollar on the front, I'm going to do lightly draw with my pencil where my 5 petal like flower goes. And I'm just drawing lightly with the pencil on top to get my shape. And if you don't like it, you can just smooth it out with your finger and try again. So I have my basic shape on here, and I'm going to use my toothpick next to add some of the details. So there's a few holes, partial holes in the middle I'm going to add, and then there's these little, they remind me of almost like little hairs around the edges. And I'm just going to go around and carve into clay, and you can do more details later as the clay dries out. So go ahead and have fun experimenting with different designs and textures. You can also use stamps like you would use with ink. Those are perfectly fine. Sometimes it's fun with your scraps that you have left over from rolling out the clay. You can experiment with those. So I have this stamp of a puppy paw print, and I'm just pressing it right onto the clay to decide if I like that design before I put it on my piece. And I think I might give this back part a puppy paw print. Oh, I think it needs another one. Oh, that's really cute. Maybe one more. It's like a puppy walked across my project. Okay, so I am just going to keep doing my designs. I'm going to let my project dry out on the piece of cardboard that was included in your kit, and I'm going to put it in a safe spot. And before I forget, I'm going to put my initials on the back of my project. I have my puppy paw prints, and I'm going to go ahead and put my initials. Use my toothpick. You could do your name, you could even do the year. I'm going to do my initials, L-Y, and I'm going to also do 2021, so I remember this wonderful year. 2021. And I hope that you will bring your project back to the art center so that it can get fired in the kiln. Thank you so much for creating with me. I hope you feel really proud of your work. And the next time you get to create with clay, go for it. You know the basic skills of scoring and slipping. Oh, there's one last thing I want to show you that's important when you work with clay. When you have scraps of clay left over, and if I want to pack it together in a ball to create something new, it's important that you do what's called wedging. So I might pack it together in my hands first. We're trying to get all the air bubbles out because air just got caught between the pieces of clay that we put together. And so air bubbles can cause projects to explode in the hot kiln, and we do not want that to happen. So wedging is this. It's just kind of like bread dough. And we're pushing the clay against the hard surface, and any rascal air bubbles are getting popped. And it's really important you do that. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your creativity with me. And be sure to return your projects in time to get fired in the kiln. There should be a date on your clay kit to return it, and I will be sure it gets fired. You'll be able to pick your choice of glaze, and we'll let you know when the project's all done and ready for you to pick up. If you'd like to visit my website, you can go to mobileclaylessons.com. You can also find me on Facebook, and I hope you have a wonderful time creating with clay. Thank you so much for being here.